So back to the possessed 2017 Toyota Tundra P0019 case study. It's been a week since I sent Sean the email with the waveform analysis and told him I highly suspect there's an aftermarket cam sensor on the Bank 2 exhaust cam. So, like I said, it's been a week. He finally got back to me. He wrote me a very excited email. Let's see what he found, and let's see if there's other issues hiding on this truck. So here's the truck. He sent me a picture of it. 2017 Tundra with a snorkel. That's why the customer thought he could submarine this thing. Anyways, let's read the email. Alright. You're going to love this. I got so excited after reading your email, I didn't even think to look at the pulse width after when the sensor pulls low. I was looking only at the position data relative to the crank sensor signal. I got the scope files back out and looked at what you said. Try to minimize the glare here. Intake cam being off a tooth, absolutely, yes. That's what I came up with too. I've got some great captures for you and pictures, and this time they'll actually attach. Okay, it's end of the month, crunch time, all this stuff. I got the next capture. For this capture I swapped the exhaust VVT sensors bank to bank. There's definitely some aftermarket debauchery here. Yes, as suspected. And the capture contains both sensors. I don't want to spoil it for you, so I can capture with the new OEM sensor installed. Can't believe it. I have some captures with a 2-channel scope. Okay, those are the old ones. So he said, I took these before changing the timing components. Well, that's not necessarily true because he changed the exhaust VVT sprocket and then got the 2-channel scope out. So anyways, curious if that was the original issue and if the shop prior had changed it and had the same codes, and that's when they started poking around. I'll bet there was nothing wrong with the original timing at all. Well, we'll see. We'll let the data decide that for us. And then I created an issue when I did the timing chain job. Yes, so it's off 1 tooth right now on Bank 2 on the main chain. I can't thank you enough, brother. The saga isn't over yet. I still have to find a way to cheese the timing over a tooth on the intake cam without going through the whole 18.5-hour job of taking the time cover off again. Okay, good luck with that, Sean. That's definitely an issue, but will that solve the initial problem of the P0019? Let's keep reading. It's so awesome walking over to the parts counter, grabbing a new OEM sensor instantly. The customer is going to be elated. He's getting his truck finally fixed correctly and getting it right this time. Wish I had the perspicacity to show all the sensors and actuators over bank to bank, or throw all the sensors and actuators over bank to bank before digging so far into this. Now I know more of what to look for. It's just phenomenal. Let me know what you think with the captures. I'll throw in the original ones too. Definitely looking at the next. Okay, so we got some captures with the OE sensor installed, and it definitely makes a difference. However, we're not done with this truck, not by a long shot. Let's look at those captures, and I actually wrote up careful notes, chronological, of what the findings are and what changed every time a part was replaced. Let's take a look at those notes. Okay, so here's a chronological timeline of what happened with this truck. So Sean got this truck in. Initially, he fixed the wiring and stuff, and he took it on a test drive, and he said the P0019 sets after 20 minutes of driving. Okay, that was what it all started with. He ended up replacing the Bank 2 exhaust phaser. If you remember that whole long list of stuff, and the engineers telling him stuff and whatever. So some parts can involved. Now P0019 sets instantly. This right here, from here to here, what changed when this bank 2 exhaust phaser is replaced to make it worse? Then Sean used a 2-channel PICO to get some CKP CMP waveforms. Then the big job, replaced timing chains, 18-hour job, and now the 19 and 18 code both set instantly, and that's when he reached out for help. Okay, so in part 1, we analyzed those waveforms. You know, I told him you have to get a 4-channel PICO and a known good truck. We want bank 1, bank 2, bad versus known good, all the data. We want all the data. So he got this 2021 Tundra 5.7 that runs great, no codes, and he got all the captures. Okay. Now, a week later, he said he replaced this exhaust cam sensor on bank, let's see, bank 1 exhaust, bank 2 exhaust. So apparently this was the original on bank 1, no issues, and this was apparently an aftermarket that the first shop installed on bank 2 exhaust. You can see there are some differences for sure. That color is different, the plastic looks different. So definitely aftermarket. And he said once he installed the OE sensor on bank 2 exhaust, no more P0019, just the 0018, because now, you know, timing, the main chain is still off one tooth. And he says, you know, the P0019, the ECM says it's happy with the bank 2 exhaust. Now it's just not happy with the bank 2 intake. Okay? So I wrote those notes down. Now only P0018 sets instantly, no more P0019. So, you know, he's celebrating. He's like, I just need to set the main chain, retard bank 2 by one tooth, and then we're done with this truck. Are you done with this truck, Sean? Well, if you retard bank 1, or I'm sorry, bank 2 intake by one tooth, what's the timing chain layout? That small chain that ties the intake and exhaust cam together. If you're retarding this one, you're also retarding the other one by the same, 20 degrees. One tooth, 20 degrees. So I bet if you just reset this chain, the P0019 code will instantly set again. So you'll be back kind of to square one, but at least now you have a known good cam sensor, and the main chain will be in the right place. So now we're finally back to the original problem on this truck. You can see that the parts canon here built in 2 extra problems. The first shop fired an aftermarket cam, bank 2 exhaust cam sensor at it. That messed up the pulse width. And then the timing chain job was done. Now you're off a tooth on the bank 2 intake sprocket. Okay, so we're trying to peel back the onion here, fix the problems that were built in, and now I think we're going to get to the original problem. But we don't know. We have to look at the data. Let's look at the latest picoscope captures. Okay, so first let's write down some numbers on the good truck bank 2. We'll use the crank as the sync, not the other cam sensor, and just write down, pick 2 sync notches, 720 degrees, and see where does the intake pulse occur, this one, and the exhaust pulse. We'll use those as a known good reference and see what changed along the line here as the broken truck has been messed with and parts have been replaced. So right here you can see first I'm measuring the intake pulse. So the falling edge is at 16 degrees, the rising edge is at 72 degrees, and our delta is 56 degrees. So that's exactly what I'm writing right here. Good 16, 72, and the delta is 56 degrees. We'll do the same with the exhaust pulse. You want to zoom in, you want to be accurate. So move that here, move that here. So about 47 to 100. Delta is 52. So 47 to 100, delta is about 53 degrees. So that's our known good. We'll compare all values of the broken truck to this value right here. Okay, so now let's go to the broken truck. This was from last time. Just want to get the numbers again. So on the exhaust pulse, so this was after the timing chain job, after the phaser was replaced, still with the aftermarket cam sensor. So this exhaust pulse, well, okay, we'll be consistent. We'll start with the intake from here to here. So about -2 to +52. Okay? -2 to plus about 53. So 55 degree width. But you can see it's about 20 degrees advanced compared to the good. That's our bank to intake advanced one tooth, 20 degrees. Yes, we're definitely 100% sure of that. That was because the timing chain wasn't installed correctly. Okay, what about the exhaust pulse? This is still with the aftermarket cam sensor. So about 37 to 101. 36 to 101. So you can see the pulse width is 65 degrees. That's bad. That's due to the aftermarket sensor. And compared to the known good, see, it's only 10 degrees advanced. Not 20. And it's basically on the money on the second edge. Isn't that crazy? So the conclusion for bank to exhaust is pulse is 10 degrees too wide. Suspect aftermarket VVT sensor. All right. So it's messing with these pulse edges. It's definitely making them too wide. Do we know if it's advancing or retarding them? That's another variable. But we need to replace this sensor with OEM and then get another capture. And that's exactly what Sean did. So this is the latest capture now. Confirmed bank to exhaust VVT sensors aftermarket, replaced with OEM, take waveforms. Let's take a look at those waveforms. Alright, so the third and final waveform here. So this is third capture, OEM sensors. Alright, so we're on the same sync notch. So our intake should not have changed at all. It should be, -2 to +52. -2 +53, so it's still, still the same. Nothing changed there. What changed with the exhaust? Let's measure the exhaust pulse. So now it's from 52 to 108. Okay? The exhaust is now 52 to 108, so the pulse width is now correct. Okay? The OEM cam sensor fixed that problem. Now we can trust these numbers. What is going on with these numbers? So check this out. Known good is 47 to 100, and this is 52 to 108. So compared to the known good, the bank to exhaust signal is about 5 degrees, maybe 6 or 7 degrees, retarded. And the intake is 20 degrees advanced. What the heck? So, okay, so that's the data. I did not expect these numbers, I expected the right pulse width, but I did not expect the whole pulse to be retarded now. Look, it went from 36 to 52, and this one went from 101 to 108. Isn't that crazy? So not only was the aftermarket sensor stretching the pulse, it was advancing the pulse by 16 degrees on the leading edge and by 7 degrees on the falling edge. So this aftermarket cam sensor is complete garbage. The transitions are wrong, the pulse width is wrong, so at least now we can trust these numbers. Okay? And he said the P0019 is no longer being set. Well, I guess that makes sense to the ECM, because compared to the known good, now you're about 5 degrees retarded, and that's within spec, so the P0019 is not setting. Does that mean the truck is fixed on the bank 2 exhaust cam? Absolutely not. Nope. It's still 5 degrees off. There's still a problem because the main chain is still off one tooth. So what's going to happen when you reset that main chain? Both cams are going to retard by 20 degrees. Okay? So, if retard bank 2 intake by one tooth, reset main bank 2 chain, both intake and exhaust will be retarded by 20 degrees. So the intake will be spot on the money. Once you do that, the P0018 code will disappear. However, bank 2 exhaust will now be 20 degrees plus 5 degrees, 25 degrees over retarded. P0019 will guaranteed is going to come right back. Absolutely. So what can cause this? What is the original problem with this truck? Once the timing chains are all aligned, once the cam sensors are figured out, they're all OEM, the signals can be trusted. The only thing I can think of here to retard this bank 2 exhaust cam by 25 degrees, it has to be some mechanical failure, like a sheared cam pin or kind of a twisted camshaft scenario, because the reluctor is part of the cam. It's not like pressed on, or it's right in the middle of the cam. I think it's cast and machined. And keep in mind, when the bank 2 exhaust phaser is replaced initially, instead of 20 minutes of driving, that code now pops up right away. So that's why I'm suspecting a mechanical problem between the phaser and the camshaft. Just to kind of verify, like maybe it's off a tooth on that small cam-to-cam chain. Well, the exhaust sprocket is 24 teeth. I found a picture, counted that. So 720 divided by 24 would be 30 degrees per tooth. So small chain is not off by one tooth. If you advance that, now you'll be 5 degrees advanced instead of 25 degrees retarded, and that's still incorrect. So Sean, you're not done with this truck. Too early to celebrate here. So the main chain is off a tooth. Yes, that's obvious. But you have to take that exhaust phaser off again and inspect. Is there a pin that locates the cam to the phaser? There's something wrong there. The cam is going to be 25 degrees retarded even if all the chains are perfectly aligned. So there's more to this story, and we'll be back once Sean tears his engine apart again, and we'll see what he finds. So it's been about a week, and Sean from the Toyota dealership got back to me with the final resolution for the 2017 Toyota Tundra with the P0019 trouble code. He took the timing cover off again, and you won't believe what he found. So here we go. It's solved, Ivan. I'm celebrating, but I'm also not happy about it. After I emailed you earlier, I did some more looking into the captures, called Toyota Task again to talk with the engineers. with all timing measurements taken with an angle finder showing mechanical timing is correct. I couldn't figure out why the PCM would think the intake cam is off and why the PICO captures are showing it's 20 degrees advanced. If I shifted the intake cam timing a tooth, exactly what you said, it would throw the exhaust timing out 25 degrees. I sat and thought about it. Mechanical timing is correct from all measurements taken on the camshaft gear marks. So the cams have to be correct, right? I'm asking my senior tech, what can cause the camshaft to be out when all the gears are in time? That's exactly the question. Then it hit both of us almost exactly the same time. I thought back to what you said about the exhaust cam knock pin, which we already checked between emails with you earlier. It has to be a problem on the intake gear, mechanically, where the cam interfaces with the sprocket and phaser. That's the only place logically that can have the issue. I ripped it apart, pulled the cam gear, and made a huge error in the installation. I don't know how this happened. The knock pin was not located correctly to the cam phaser sprocket, and the pin punched out a chunk of metal that lodged the cam phaser in an advanced position. We had a donor sprocket available from the engine with significantly less miles on it, indexed it, and installed the cam gear. So he sent me some pictures. This is the back of the intake, bank to intake phaser. You can see that's probably the hole for locating the cam. And here's the one that he took off. This was after the first timing chain job. Holy crap, look at that. So that pin in the cam punched a hole right next to the locating hole, and that's why the cam was 20 degrees advanced. I didn't see that coming. That's pretty crazy. So, you know, this timing setup is a little tricky. You have to install both phasers on the cams at the same time because there's the chain, you know, linking them together, and then torque it down. So I guess if the camshafts either shifted a little bit while the phasers are off, or something shifted and you just torque those things down, I guess that might happen. Insane. So, mystery solved, right? You replace the intake phaser, and then set the exhaust cam timing marks since it didn't matter. Got the engine reassembled, started up, and it had no codes. Checked all the readiness, and it passed 1918. I need to drive the vehicle tomorrow, verify the repair, make sure the vehicle is ready to return to service. Here's the sickening part about all of this. I want to blame myself because I didn't catch this before being instructed to fire the cannon. And I'm also rationalizing it because the engineers who made the thing didn't catch it either. Your catch on the signal as being too wide comparing it to the known good was the problem. Here's my hypothesis on what happened. So this is Sean's chronological version of the whole story here. So, 1. Truck develops problems, sets codes for what we don't know. Customer takes vehicle to shop number 1. Shop 1 fires a VVT sensor at it, doesn't fix it, and damages harness testing for codes. We do not know what the codes were. You know, why was the harness damaged, and why was that bank 2 exhaust VVT sensor replaced? Customer takes it to us. We find codes P0019 and 348. Repair the harness. We still have the P0019 due to the aftermarket sensor. We fire the parts cannon, and so does Toyota's diagnostic hotline. We created a problem installing the intake cam incorrectly while changing timing chains. That's when the intake phaser got damaged. Post-chain procedure, issue still persists, plus a P0018. I reach out to you, and now the PICO scope comes into play. Take captures of a known good truck. You catch the signaling being too fat and the intake cam timing being off. Finally, swap the exhaust VVT bank 2 sensor for a brand new one, fixes the signal being too wide, and exhaust cams now matches our known good. PCM says P0019 tests okay, but for some reason it's still 5 degrees off. It's within the window, but that's still a question. We find the error I made with the intake cam gear installed, corrected the issue. Now vehicle passes self-test for P0019 and P0018. So finally, this truck is fixed. The whole time I having the issue was the harness damage and the aftermarket VVT sensor. I missed it. I let the other fire the parts kind of through me. I let the engineers talk me into repairs and more parts without any firm grounds or basis for the decisions. I feel pretty crummy about that. Albeit the engineers didn't catch it, I feel like I should have. I should have known a good known capture from another Tundra instead of letting the engineers make me believe they have reference captures and timing had to be off. I talked to them today and they said the exhaust timing is off. Frustrating. That was one of the big reasons I wanted to try an OEM dealer shop for the support and info I couldn't get through AllData or Mitchell. And I find out support from the manufacturers is crap. LOL. See, check out the capture prior to changing the timing chains. VVT compared with Bing to unknown capture. Exhaust VVT timing is the same. Meaning the chains didn't change anything. Only thing that PCM was griping about was the signals being incorrect for the expected input at a given RPM. Pictures of all the good intake and the failed installation gear. I don't know 100% what to think about this. Can't believe it's finally fixed. Well, at least until I drive it tomorrow. That's quite the saga. So the truck is fixed. Back on the road. New VVT sensor and new intake phaser. New timing chains. And a lot of hours and aggravation later. So I wrote Sean an email back, so let's read that. So I write, hey Sean, I have no words. That was one twisted case study, bro. This is almost like the twisted camshaft case study. It's exactly cases like this that are by far the biggest learning opportunities in our careers. I firmly believe that. Everyone involved can take away some very valuable lessons from this possessed Tundra. Number one, you can only trust yourself and your oscilloscope. 2, tearing things apart without hard data-backed evidence will likely create more problems. I see this over and over again. Doesn't matter if you're DIY or have 30 years experience. Anytime you tear something apart without evidence, there's always a chance that more problems will be created. It's just the nature of the game. Performing a repair under time pressure, dealership environment especially, can lead to mistakes even by seasoned technicians. That's a big one. Sean is in this environment where he has cars coming in his bay, he has the manager, advisors, all this stuff. For a really difficult case like this, that is not a good environment to focus on that. And if you're going to do like a 10-hour timing chain job under time pressure, not surprising at all that a simple mistake like not aligning the phaser with the cam even happened. Don't beat yourself up, man. That's just the environment, and you can't really control that. And that's exactly why I just work by myself on a farm where I can think. That's one of the keys to solving these problems. You need just peace and quiet and concentrate, 100% focus on the issue at hand. No distractions. So point 4, parts cannon approach can snowball out of control very quickly. I've diagnosed my fair share of parts cannon disasters that have had several problems built in addition to the original problem, exactly like this poor Tundra. Having a support network of fellow diagnosticians and reaching out for help when you hit a roadblock is extremely helpful. I've been in these situations many times and have given up on several cars without talking to fellow diagnosticians. Huge kudos to you for finally solving all the problems getting the Tundra back on the road. Many people would have thrown in the towel a long time ago. And now you're by default the lead diagnostic tech in your service department, and you have a 4-channel PICO. So that is awesome. I'm curious now how the customer is going to be charged for this whole debacle. So the Diag absolutely required an oscilloscope and the knowledge to carefully analyze waveforms and a known good truck. So I think, this truck came to my shop, 3 hours of diagnostic time plus the cost of a new OEM VVT sensor would be a fair charge to the customer, considering it had another shop mess with all the other, introduced variables. So you can see the first shot, before we even got to the dealer, they built in a problem, and then at the dealer more problems were built in, and then once the PICO scope came into play and we analyzed some waveforms, we started peeling back the onion of all the problems that were built in, plus the original problem, and finally the truck is back on the road. So that took some time. It really did, but I think we learned a lot together. So, all the remaining timing parts and labor and all the chains that were taken apart, like all of that would have to be covered by the dealership. That would only be fair to the customer. And I asked them to get a known good capture because I'm worried about this bank 2 exhaust phaser being off 5 degrees. So if the chains stretch a bit, it would set that code again. So I told them we'll do a video series on this case study, an awesome case study, and I really hope that everyone involved, including the engineers on the tech line, will take time to watch and learn. This is the only way we can work together to slowly change the industry for the better. Thank you, Sean, for reaching out and sharing this experience. Please don't hesitate to share future head scratchers as well. So that's the conclusion. Sean got back to me and he was very thankful. And again, I spent hours and hours looking at these waveforms, and I didn't expect to get paid for this because I know, they're already in the hole because they're doing all this unnecessary work. But this is an exception. I usually don't work for free, but considering how interesting this case study was, and we can share it with everyone and learn from it, I think it's very worthwhile to share. That's the only way this industry is going to change for the better. So hopefully you enjoyed that one. Diagnostics from the desk. Didn't get my hands dirty, but still learned a lot, and happy ending. So thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. So after the dust settled from that one, a little bonus footage here, Sean sent me a message on how the dealership handled this and how the customer was treated, and I think that's worth sharing just to so everyone's informed and how these things proceed. So first he says, Toyota has a rating system, and I let them know they didn't help at all. Ended up talking with the field service tech about the lack of support and oversight on this issue. And from what he told me, they're going to use this case to improve their technician support, retrain on PICO scope data, and improve themselves. Well, that all sounds great if it happens. Absolutely. As far as the customer goes, I don't have the exact numbers and figures, but I do know that the parts department was upset about marking the parts down to cost. Well, part scanner needs ammo, and it costs money. So, if they're upset about that, then I guess it's best to avoid the parts cannon in the first place, right? And I know enough that the customer did not pay for the labor and parts to do the operations that I did on the vehicle. The customer did pay for having the starter replaced. Yep, that's fair. Electrical repair on the harness. Yep, and the camshaft position sensor, which was the original problem of the P0019. I believe he did pay for extended diagnostic time. We had been in contact with him a couple of times throughout the process, of course letting him know we need to authorize more labor time, get the vehicle diagnosed, but he did not pay anywhere close to the actual time I had in the truck. Yes. We internally charged a lot of the parts to ourselves to each the cost, and ultimately we all took a hit on it, but the customer's taken care of. He's had the truck for a week and no issue since. I just talked with the writer and he said he hasn't heard back from him. Okay, so that's mostly positive feedback. It seems like the customer was treated fairly, but his truck was down for how long? This all started back in February. Now it's end of April, so at least 2 months. So Sean, if you look back on this, and let's say you have the PICO scope and you have a known good truck sitting next to you, how long would it take to diagnose this problem and repair it? I would say within a day, you could give the truck back to the customer, right? To determine that VVT sensor's aftermarket, the service or the parts department probably has one on the shelf, or can have, you know, shipped the next day. New sensor, boom. No teardown required, no, don't get your hands dirty, right? Just some scope captures or, yeah. So that could have saved a lot of time and effort on everyone's part. And that's the whole point of diagnostics, right? So I think that was a great case study. We'll put up these videos and we'll see if they make it into the Toyota official training guide or whatever. But yeah, thanks, Sean, for sharing. And maybe you'll have some more case studies for us in the future. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.